The Garden of the Awakened Soul, a Zen tale to empower your inner selfer. In a time when the noise of the world threatens to drown out our inner voice, there exists an ancient path that reminds us of who we truly are. This Zen story invites you on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth, specially crafted for those who have gathered the wisdom of years and wish to reconnect with their most authentic essence. Through the story of Keiko, a 52-year-old woman who discovers the transformative power of looking within, you will explore the keys to awakening your inner potential, finding mental peace, and rediscovering the strength that has always lived inside you. This tale is an invitation to pause, breathe, and remember that it is never too late to bloom, because true fulfillment does not depend on age, but on the depth with which we choose to live each present moment. Chapter 1. The Awakening of Silence. Keiko gazed at her reflection in the pond of the public garden, wondering when she had stopped recognizing herself. At 52, she felt that her life had drifted like a river without direction, carrying her from obligation to obligation, without giving her time to ask what her heart truly desired. For decades, she had played her roles well: devoted wife, selfless mother, efficient professional. But in giving so much to others, she had forgotten to nourish herself. Personal development had been postponed to a someday that never arrived, and the connection with her inner self had become a faint whisper drowned in daily noise. That autumn morning, as golden leaves gently fell on the water, Keiko felt a tightness in her chest. It wasn't physical pain, but the urgent call of her soul asking for attention. The search for meaning she had postponed for years now showed up as an absolute necessity. She decided it was time to begin her path of inner transformation. Without knowing exactly how, but with the certainty of someone who finally listens to the truth, she began walking toward the small Zen temple she had passed hundreds of times yet never dared to enter. The temple's master, an elder with serene eyes named Rashi, welcomed her as if he had been waiting for her all along. Self-knowledge, he said, begins when we stop running away from ourselves. Chapter 2. The Inner Garden. Rashi guided Keiko to a hidden Zen garden behind the main temple. This garden, he explained, is a mirror of your inner world. Spiritual growth begins by recognizing the ground where you will plant the seeds of change. Keiko observed the neglected garden. Wild weeds growing uncontrolled, stones scattered chaotically, the pond covered with dead leaves. "Why is it so abandoned?" she asked in surprise. "Because your inner garden is the same," the master replied with compassion. "For years you have cared for everyone else's gardens while your own became overgrown. Personal transformation begins the moment we choose to cultivate our sacred inner space." He handed her some gardening tools. "Your task is to restore this garden. But there is one condition. You may only work for 1 hour each day at dawn when the mind is calm. And while you work, practice mindfulness. Observe every thought without judging it." Keiko accepted the challenge. The next morning, as she pulled out the first weed, she felt resistance. Not just from the earth, but from her own mind whispering, "You don't have time for this. There are more important things to do." But she continued, breathing deeply, staying rooted in the present moment. And in that simple act of tending the garden, she began to understand that she was learning to tend to herself. Each plant she uprooted was a limiting belief she released. Each stone she placed intentionally was a value she chose for her life. Chapter 3. The Storms of the Ego. 3 weeks later, Keiko had cleaned a quarter of the garden. She felt proud and expected some recognition from Rashi. But when he visited, he barely glanced at it and simply said, "Continue." Keiko's frustration quickly turned into anger. Didn't he see her effort? Didn't she deserve at least a few words of appreciation? That night, she nearly decided to abandon the temple. Her mind insisted, This isn't worth it. They don't value you. Your emotional well-being lies elsewhere. But the next morning something pulled her back. When she reached the garden, she discovered that a storm during the night had undone part of her work. Scattered stones, uprooted plants, mud everywhere. She sat on the wet ground and cried. Rashi appeared quietly beside her. "Storms will always come," he said softly. "Not only in this garden, but in your life. True inner strength isn't avoiding the storms, but learning to stay centered while everything around you shakes." "But I lost so much work," Keiko sobbed. "Did you lose work? Or did you gain a lesson?" The master asked. "Your ego wanted my approval. The storm came to show you that the value of your practice does not depend on external validation. Inner peace arises when you stop needing others to approve of you." Keiko realized she had been working on the garden to impress the master, not for the practice itself. Her motivation was still external. Real change required working with no expectations, no seeking of reward, purely for the honor of caring for her sacred space. That afternoon, she began again, this time with a genuine smile, savoring each moment of the process without attachment to results. Chapter 4: The Mirror of Relationships. As the garden flourished, Keiko noticed changes in her daily life. Her family relationships, tense for years, began to soften. Her daughter, who had often been distant, started seeking her company to talk. "What changed in you, Mom?" she asked one afternoon. "You seem different, more present." Keiko reflected. She hadn't intentionally tried to change her relationships. Simply, by cultivating emotional awareness in the garden and learning to be present without judgment, that quality naturally flowed into all her interactions. Rashi explained, "Relationships are mirrors. When you awaken your consciousness and genuinely transform yourself from within, the outer world reflects that change. You don't need to force your relationships to improve. Improve them by improving yourself." But it wasn't all easy. Her husband, used to a compliant and always available Keiko, felt confused by this new version who set healthy boundaries and dedicated time to her morning practice. "You've become selfish," he said one morning. The words hurt, but Keiko had learned in the garden not to react instantly. She breathed and replied calmly, "Taking care of myself isn't selfish. For years I emptied myself to fill others. Now I'm learning that I can only give from abundance, not from depletion." That night, her husband returned and apologized. "You're right," he said. "I'm just afraid of losing you." "You're not losing me," Keiko replied, taking his hand. "I'm finding myself, and in finding myself, I can love you better." Chapter 5: The Art of Letting Go. The garden was now beautiful, but Keiko faced another challenge. Some plants simply wouldn't grow despite her efforts. She clung to them, overwatering, transplanting them repeatedly, refusing to accept that they didn't belong there. Rashi watched her struggle patiently. Finally, he said, "Your greatest obstacle to inner freedom is attachment. You cling to plants that don't want to grow here, just as you cling to expectations, relationships, and versions of yourself that no longer serve you." "But isn't letting them die the same as giving up?" Keiko asked. "If I let them go, doesn't that mean I failed?" "On the contrary," the master replied. "Letting go isn't giving up. It's liberation. It is the bravest act of personal fulfillment. Releasing what doesn't thrive creates space for what can. You cling to these plants because you invested time in them, but that time is already gone. The real question is, what do you want to create now?" Keiko meditated on this teaching for days. She began to recognize areas of her life where she was also clinging unnecessarily. A job that no longer fulfilled her, toxic friendships she maintained out of habit, and especially her need to control how others perceived her. With tears in her eyes, she finally removed the dying plants, and she felt an unexpected lightness. In the empty spaces, she planted new seeds, trusting that the unknown could bring beauty if she allowed openness. Cultivating trust in life's process, without clinging to rigid expectations, became her new daily practice. Chapter 6. The Wisdom of Silence. Keiko had been working in the garden for 3 months. One morning, while raking the Zen sand, her mind suddenly stilled. Not because she forced it, but because she simply let go. In that moment of pure calm, she experienced something she had never felt. A sense of fulfillment that depended on nothing external. "This is meditation," Rashi appeared beside her. "It's not about forcing the mind to be empty. It's about creating space for it to settle naturally, like mud sinking to the bottom of a pond when you stop stirring the water." He then taught her the practice of inner silence. "Your mind has spoken non-stop for decades, commenting, judging, planning, remembering. True inner balance arises when you observe these thoughts without identifying with them." In the following weeks, Keiko practiced this silent observation not only in the garden but in her daily life. When her boss criticized her unfairly, instead of reacting, she observed the anger arise and let it dissolve like a passing cloud. When her mother called to complain endlessly, she listened with compassion without absorbing the negativity. The emotional resilience she had cultivated made her stronger yet surprisingly gentler. One afternoon, her best friend told her, "I don't know what you did, but you have a peace you never had before. I want what you have." Keiko smiled. "It's not something I possess. It's something that was always there. I just stopped searching outside and began looking within." Empowerment comes not from adding more, but from reconnecting with who you already are. Chapter 7. Deep Acceptance. The garden was nearly complete. It was a serene space that attracted butterflies and birds. Keiko felt proud, yet she noticed part of her still sought absolute perfection. Every fallen leaf bothered her. Every wilted flower unsettled her. Rashi observed her one morning as she anxiously removed dry petals from a rose. "What do you see when you look at this wilted rose?" he asked. "An imperfection," Keiko replied. "I see the full nature of life," said the master. "Birth, blooming, decay, and death. Everything is perfect in its imperfection. Your resistance to natural decline shows that you still fight reality. True inner mastery comes when you embrace every season of life, including the autumn and winter of your own existence." His words hit something deep. Keiko had spent years resisting aging, fighting the natural changes in her body and life, forgetting the unique beauty of every stage. "At 52, Rashi continued, "you shouldn't try to be who you were at 30. You should celebrate the wisdom, depth, and authenticity that only come from years lived. True self-discovery happens when you stop rejecting parts of yourself and embrace them all into a harmonious whole." Keiko began a new practice. Every morning, instead of criticizing her reflection, she offered gratitude for the body that had carried her here, for the wrinkles telling stories of laughter and tears, for the hands that had created, loved, and cared. Self-compassion replaced self-criticism, and in that subtle shift, she found a freedom she had never imagined. She no longer needed to be perfect to be worthy. Her worth was inherent, unchanging, eternal. Chapter 8. The Completed Garden. 6 months after her first day, Keiko stood before the fully restored garden. Every element was in harmony. The raked sand, the clear pond reflecting the sky, the blooming plants. It was a place of stunning beauty. Rashi stood in silence for a long time. Finally he said, "It is perfect." Keiko waited for joy to rise at the praise, but instead she felt something deeper, a quiet satisfaction that didn't depend on his words. She had completed the work not for approval but for the purity of the process. But now, Rashi continued with a playful smile, I want you to destroy it. Keiko stared at him. Destroy it? All of it. This garden was never about creating something beautiful outside, he explained. It was about the inner awakening happening within you. You are attached to the result. Show me you understand. The value is not in the finished work, but in who you became while creating it. Keiko took a slow breath. Something inside her resisted, but she recognized the truth in his words. With tears and a peaceful smile, she took the rake and began to erase the patterns she had crafted so carefully. As she did, she felt an immense liberation. She was no longer a prisoner of her creations. She no longer needed to cling to anything. True realization was in being, not in having or doing. Now you have completed your practice, Rashi said. The outer garden may vanish, but the inner garden you cultivated will remain forever. No one can take it from you because it is you. Keiko then understood the final teaching. She had spent 6 months restoring a garden, but in truth, she had restored something far more valuable, her connection with her most authentic self. She had empowered her inner being not by adding anything new, but by removing the layers that hid her true nature. She returned to her daily life transformed. Her job didn't change. Her family didn't change. Her circumstances didn't change, but she did, and that changed everything. Months later, her daughter asked, Mom, what was the secret? How did you change so much? Keiko smiled with the serenity of someone who has found her center. There is no secret, just the decision to stop running away from myself and start getting to know who I am. The power was always within. I only had to clear the obstacles so it could shine. And the most beautiful part is that it's never too late. The perfect moment to begin is always now. And in that now resonated the essence of her entire transformation. The awakening of present moment awareness, the only place life truly unfolds. Epilogue. Keiko continued visiting the temple, no longer as a student seeking lessons, but as a gardener of the soul who had discovered that every day is an opportunity to cultivate her inner world. The garden was rebuilt and destroyed many times, each cycle taking her deeper into the understanding of impermanence and the beauty of constant change. And in the simplicity of a Zen garden, she found the deepest answers about her purpose, her inner strength, and the infinite capability every human being has to transform, regardless of age, circumstances, or past. Because true power lies not in controlling the world outside, but in cultivating peace, wisdom, and love in the sacred garden of the heart.